You've heard a lot of promises over the years.
I helped tens of thousands of patients reverse autoimmune disease.
We can do things in our body to help detoxify some of this plastic and forever chemicals.
They've hijacked our kitchens, our brain chemistry, our metabolism, our hormones. We need to take it back.
I myself start every day with a cold bath. That sort of approach can increase testosterone levels and maybe even sperm counts.
You can return to a picture of health and vitality with a simple change of perspective.
If this one thing is done, whatever chronic ailments that one has will completely vanish.
All you have to do is follow simple practices that our ancient ancestors did and let your body's hidden wisdom take over.
I have the best comprehensive biomarkers of anybody on the planet.
There are health hacks that fall outside the paradigm of Western medicine.
Systems are falling apart absolutely everywhere.
One of the greatest forms of malpractice today in the entire medical profession is doctors that prescribe antibiotics.
Sometimes I feel like medical doctors are just a hustle.
I plan to continue in the short term doing coffee enemas, and I'm just going to possibly see another doctor get a second opinion.
Because powerful business interests are suppressing the secrets to human vitality.
Sure, he gets some kind of money from the pharmaceutical companies.
Is there a reason why they don't look towards nature? Is there a reason they stick to drugs?
Yeah, hey, a person with cancer is $1 million.
At least that's what they tell you. But you know that the world is full of health grifters and wellness scammers who stand to make fortunes shilling alternative therapies that don't have anything to back them up.
Just follow the money. You see how it all is connected.
If she's worth $300 million, then we're equal partners financially, because I'm worth over that now.
And this is part of the why I created this company called Function Health, which
I'd like to take a quick break and thank our sponsor, Juve.
It can seem like there's nothing true in the world at all, that every influencer, celebrity scientist, best-selling author, hospital chain, and pharmaceutical business is ultimately just out there trying to scam you out of your hard-earned money while leaving you ever sicker, older, and confused by your own health concerns. We all struggle with the same questions. Is there truth to alternative medicine and wellness, or is our broken medical system the best there is? Solving this riddle has been the focus of my 25-year career, first as a medical anthropologist and then as an investigative journalist. I've written one book on criminal behavior and scientific dishonesty in big pharma, another book on the cultish roots of the spiritual wellness industry, and then 3 other books attempting to bridge the gap between wellness and Western medicine. I'm a daily practitioner of ice baths and breathwork and have done dozens of videos on this channel calling out wellness scammers and fake scientists, including, I'm ashamed to admit, ones that I helped make famous. In other words, I have some perspective on all sides of these issues, but make my living not by selling remedies and online courses, but by attempting to make sense of it all. And in this video, I'm going to try to cut through at least some of the confusion between wellness and Western healthcare and point you in the direction of something that I think actually works. And to do that, I first need to briefly explain 2 fundamental but competing ideas about human health: vitalism and disease. First up is vitalism. It has historically been the main way that people thought about disease going back to at least ancient Egypt. It gained traction and became the dominant paradigm in the 18th and 19th centuries. It defines human health as a positive quality. It's the idea that every living thing has an essential and vital force which keeps it alive and which, if it goes away, it leads to death. Vitalists aim to increase this force through diet and exercise and sleep supplements and other sorts of interventions. And this part's important: to keep a person in a constant, healthy state. In other words, this is all the world of wellness. The second approach is the disease paradigm, which is the hallmark of Western medicine. The idea is that diseases have discrete causes that doctors can treat by eliminating the symptoms of the illness. The goal is to eliminate the problem, whether it's an infectious agent or anatomical abnormality, so that the system returns to homeostasis. Now, these might sound similar in their goals, but the 2 paradigms are actually essentially opposite approaches to health, with one aiming to increase good qualities, while the other aims to subtract bad ones. This is Mark Hyman, one of the founders of functional medicine, explaining the most modern iteration of vitalism.
And when people ask me what functional medicine is, I say it's the science of creating health as opposed to the science of treating disease. When you create health, disease goes away as a side effect.
And this, it's really important to understand. You've probably heard it before, but let's sit with it for a second. While you know if you're sick just by how you're feeling, and a doctor then can measure the objective signs of disease that confirm the presence of the illness or its disappearance, there is no way to objectively measure inherent vitality. On the surface, what Hyman is saying sounds like pretty appealing. It's like what healthcare should be. Unfortunately, the problem with being human is that we all want vitalism, but can only objectively measure things that cause suffering. And everything hinges on his usage of the word optimize.
So if you optimize your basic body systems, your gut, your immune system, your mitochondria, your detox system, your hormonal regulatory system, when you optimize those things, symptoms go away. And you don't have to treat all the different branches of the trees and the leaves on the trees. You treat the root and the trunk, which is what functional medicine does.
While seeking optimal health seems obvious if you don't listen too closely, it's actually a pretty empty idea on its own, one that the disease paradigm of Western medicine actually already takes into account. Take, for instance, the standard measure of diabetes. If your blood sugar is below 100, then you're normal, and from 100 to 125, you're considered pre-diabetic. Above that, that's when you enter into diabetes territory. Alternatively, the opposite of diabetes is hypoglycemia, or a blood sugar of below 70. Being in between 70 and 100 is simply being normal. There's no extra healthy magic number for optimal. There's no other dimension here to measure. You can't be extra non-diabetic. And this is where functional medicine and wellness in general make a categorical error when they attempt to adopt scientific language. The idea of optimal is fiction. Worse, it's really just a marketing term akin to like exclusive or luxury when talking about real estate or an upscale restaurant. This is because no one agrees on what optimal actually means. Functional medicine is trying to have its cake and eat it too by using the language and methodology of the disease paradigm of Western medicine and then pretending that it's measuring vitalism. And here's the thing, disease, it can generally be quantified and in acute cases can be traced to a specific cause. There are no good metrics for what healthy means. Take, for instance, the idea of biological age. People go through life in a single direction as a function of time.
We're going to look at all the scientific evidence ever published on the evidence on slowing down aging and accelerating aging. And then we're going to try to be the most don't die person in human history. So how do you slow down the speed of aging? How do you extend lifespan? And that's what we've done. And so, for example, when I say I have the best comprehensive biomarkers, for example, like my internal body clock on my speed of aging is 0.57.
You got it lower than 0.62?
I did.
Having the same biomarkers as a 20-year-old does not make you 20 years old. Indeed, there are no biomarkers at all that all 20-year-olds share together, and no single perfect standard of human health that you can use to compare to make an accurate assessment of what biological age actually is.
I measured 50 different biomarkers.
It's also just a simple fact of math that measuring more variables makes an equation more complex and then lowers the fidelity of the conclusions, so that determining biological age by measuring like 100 biomarkers is akin to reading tea leaves. It leads to less objectivity, not more. And this leads to a sort of crazy outcome. If there is no way to objectively identify what ideal health is, then all you can say scientifically is how far you are from a diseased state. Since functional medicine can't actually define what optimal health is, it counterintuitively has to assume that all humans are always diseased, even if they don't have any symptoms of illness. They convince you that you are already sick by your biomarkers and then commit you to a lifelong optimization protocols that simply replace big pharma with big wellness, only with less scientific rigor. However, I want to remind you that this video is about what works in wellness. Because vitalism isn't all bad. It's actually a cool idea that just needs to be understood as a paradigm in its own right. Because there is a huge blind spot in the disease paradigm as well. It has a very bad time explaining the subjective sensation of what feeling good is. Just like vitalism, it doesn't have the tools to answer the questions that vitalism is actually asking when it's pretending to be science. In general, people in the wellness paradigm should not talk about physiological mechanisms from a place of authority. With just a few exceptions, reductive science isn't at a place where we can conclusively say that any specific biological medicine outside of disease leads to a subjective improvement in life experience. Western medicine can evaluate some diseases at a population level, but it's quite limited in predicting the outcomes of you as an individual. Both Western medicine and wellness fail when they cross their exclusive boundaries. Or maybe fail is the wrong word. It's more like they both generally lack credibility when they offer solutions to problems that they can't technically address. The farther they stray into the other's territory, the more likely they are to become scams. So if we want to cure the gap between wellness and disease, we need to look at what both approaches actually have in common rather than shoehorning one idea into the language of the other, which is what functional medicine does. To do that, I'd like to put forward the idea of range. And I'm not the person who came up with the term, but I really like it. If a disease decreases the number of actions that you can comfortably take, it decreases your range. Meanwhile, if other protocols or techniques increase the actions that you have available to you, then you have grown your range. Range is still an objective measure. You can do things or you can't do things. And it's simultaneously one that you have to evaluate subjectively and on an individual basis. Range is a particularly useful thing to consider because it connects a person to their environment. Thought of broadly enough, range accounts for what social scientists call the social determinants of health, as well as particular and specific disease states. Take, for instance, the example of a person born into a wealthy family. They have more range because of what their social status and money and can afford, whether it's better food or education or literally anything else. At the same time, a person with a broken leg has less range because they literally cannot walk. Range thus allows a holistic view of human experience, if at the same time it's a little limited because it's harder to quantify. And yet, do you really need to be quantified? If you are doing more things, you're happier and you're healthier. So range is actually really useful from an individual level. Another thing that range is useful to explain is the enduring problem of the placebo effect that many people have noticed overlaps between the domains of wellness and medicine. It's my opinion that if someone feels better after making an intervention, whether it is a shamanic healing or a doctor-prescribed antibiotic, the underlying mechanism doesn't matter as much as their subjective experience. The empirical fact of increased range after the intervention is all that I care about. And this is one of the places where we can build bridges between the world of science and the subjective benefits of lifestyle alterations. And I'm going to make a big statement now, based on 25 years of observing successes and failures in alternative health. So here goes. The value of a wellness intervention is proportional to the intensity of the sensations that intervention produces. This is something I've spent a couple hundred pages discussing in detail on in my book, The Wedge. And the thing that is most overlooked amid the cascade of lifestyle products and wellness funnel upsells. Sensations are both emotional and physical. And the fact of the matter is that we really don't know exactly how sensations alter the physical substrate of the body, other than that they do alter things. If consciousness is stored in the brain, then sensations are the first step in the pathway that encodes that information from the environment into your nervous system. And those nervous system encodings have a cascading effect that change the way that your body reacts to the environment. Just like the skin is a physical barrier between your body and the outside world, in terms of the mechanisms that exist inside the body, Sensations connect your psychology and your consciousness to the environment and ultimately define your ability to act in the world. That's right, sensations actually define your range. So if you regularly experience strong sensations in order to grow accustomed to them, you will ultimately expand your range of action simply because you are comfortable doing more things. Let me give you an example. When you first start running or lifting weights, the sensations you feel are strong and usually pretty uncomfortable. But the more you perform those exercises, the easier those actions become and thereby increase your range. The same goes for the popular trend of ice baths. Uncomfortable cold quickly becomes a source of enjoyment. Meanwhile, in heat, saunas transform that oppressive feeling into the resilience to ever hotter environments. And the more you expose yourself to those kinds of stresses, the more range you have in experiencing them. You also build up range with adjacent sensations. For instance, if you fear the ice water, immersing yourself in it and growing accustomed to it lends a generalized benefit towards anxiety. And again, I go into more detail about the nitty-gritty of this in my book, The Wedge, and some older videos on this channel. You can truly do miraculous things to expand your range. You already have just by growing up from an infant with almost zero range into the fantastic human that you are today. But I want to be very clear about is the limitations to these takeaways. We don't really understand the mechanisms that make all of the functions of the human body work together. Any attempt to describe those benefits of range expansion in the same terms that we use to explain medicine through like hormone cascades and receptors and the parts of the brain lighting up that correlate with specific types of emotional growth or resilience, they'll all turn out to be inevitably, categorically wrong. Because the science just isn't there yet. And in fact, it may never be there. And yet, it's reasonable to assume that many sensations are similar in character between people. The cold that I feel is the same cold that you feel, for instance. We both hurt the same when we stub our toes. And the overwhelming feeling of love is shared between individuals who are falling in love. In other words, feelings are the same, but no neuroscientist or endocrinologist has ever reverse engineered a sensation. And while we can be open to the possibility of that happening in the future, this is what's called the hard problem of consciousness. Anyone claiming to understand the mechanisms based on current science is either deliberately lying to you for their own benefit or is overconfident and deluded in their understandings of human physiology. If you hear anyone talking about heat shock or cold shock proteins as they pertain to longevity, please run the other direction. Anyone who says they have a specific practice that raises or lowers your cortisol or adrenaline, and that hormonal movement means something about your psychological state, again, is making inaccurate assessments of causality and pretending to be a doctor when in fact they are just a charlatan. And of course, different physical actions and exposures can affect your psychological state, but we frankly have no idea how it actually all fits together. It's just marketing and jingoism. And don't even get me started if they mention how consciousness can affect quantum states. There are, of course, interesting things to say about consciousness and quantum physics in certain controlled settings, but the science is not even close to talking about how that scales up to the human level. If we did, there would be actual science to prove it. The wellness charlatans and fake scientists sell an image of physiological certainty by exploiting basic truths about the way we all experience sensation. It feels good to overcome challenges and expand your range. These are predictable effects of being human in the environment. That should be enough. You should exercise because of the joy it makes you feel. It will make you healthier, even if you can't measure exactly what that means. We can't say that it will cure a specific disease, but we can say it might help. And here's my larger point. If we create a science around sensation, perhaps what used to be called phenomenology, then we would be able to foster predictable experiences through exposure that broaden people's ranges in any number of dimensions. We don't need to pretend that the experience of sensation supersedes medical knowledge based on physical processes. If we can avoid that trap, then both science and wellness can coexist and make human health better for everyone. And that's my assessment of what works in wellness. Keep doing the things that make you feel good. Get good sleep, eat healthy, exercise, and develop meaningful connections with other humans. Every doctor and every wellness teacher agree on those points. The more you do, the more you will be able to do. And should you start to feel the symptoms of an actual illness, go to a doctor who actually specializes in it. And thanks so much for watching my video today. It's almost definitely insufficient for the true complexity of the human body and the range of human experience, but I think the general principle should get you pretty far. Remember, I have a Substack newsletter where people get early access to my work before it shows up here on YouTube, and it really means the world to me whenever someone shows support for my independent journalism and becomes a premium member, which starts at $8 a month. Remember, I don't do fancy upsells or product sponsorships. This channel survives because of viewers like you. And if you want to see more deep dives on these topics, please leave a comment down below and let me know. I've written quite a few books on these topics, and a great place to start would be The Wedge. I did a speech on the Wedge in Aspen a few years ago, and this is a true story because Mark Hyman was in the audience. And afterwards, he asked me a ton of questions about cold exposure, and then, about a year later, put out a book on that very topic. I think he might have misunderstood some of the most important points that I was getting to. From PokeyBear LLC in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney Investigates. Thank you so much to all of my supporters on Patreon and on Substack who make this work possible. If you want early access and to get your name on the honor roll, please check out those links down below. And, it just means the world to me that you're here. From PokeyBear LLC in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney Investigates.
Yeah.